Hello everyone, this is Tiffany Jackson, naturopathic doctor and nutrition specialist at Cenegenics Carolinas. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, How to Eat Like a Pro, Nutrition for Athletes. We see a lot of athletes here at Cenegenics Carolinas, and when we do a health history, we often find frequent illness, injuries, and overtraining, and lots of nutrition confusion. So that is what we are going to be talking about on this webinar. If you have questions about Cenegenics Carolinas and how to become a patient, this is your time to ask. Anytime throughout the webinar, we have our staff available at our office ready to take your calls. So feel free to call us 843-724-7272. Also, if you have any questions about what we're discussing, feel free to type it in on the computer. We'll be answering those at the end of the webinar. So on this webinar, we have Dr. Chris Nagy and both of our exercise physiologists here. I'm going to just share a little about them. Dr. Chris Nagy is a board-certified orthopedic surgeon, and he is our Chief Medical Officer at the Charlotte office. He's an active athlete competing in numerous sports and won a competitive bodybuilding competition in his division. Riley Phelps is an exercise physiologist in Charleston, South Carolina. He's a former Division I athlete and holds a master's degree in health science and sports science from the Citadel. Katrina Hall is the exercise physiologist in Charlotte. She received her master's of science degree from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte in clinical exercise physiology, and she's an endurance athlete participating in road and trail races. So is everybody there?
We're here.
Sure are.
We're here. Oh, great. All right, I'm going to start with a question for Dr. Nagy. With your background working with our patients and athletes here, can you just describe a little bit about our nutrition plan and food diamond here at Cenegenics, and how you've seen it affect athletes and performance?
Oh, sure. I'd be happy to start. First I want to say how glad I am that we're doing this webinar. Really, the importance of nutrition for athletes is paramount. I mean, health and fitness are not synonymous. There are many athletes who are fit, but not necessarily healthy. The Cenegenics Carolinas nutrition plan is designed to maximize the results of really all components of our program, primarily by keeping blood sugar and insulin levels low. The basis of what we teach, first and foremost, is that as an athlete, you eat to perform. And as you can see from this slide here, the Cenegenics Food Diamond kind of completely obliterates the nutritional guidelines illustrated by the USDA's food pyramid, or their new My Plate food recommendations. The USDA food guide pyramid is based really on a carbohydrate-rich diet, particularly grains and starches, with high amounts of dairy. The Cenegenics Food Diamond calls more for organic hormone low-fat dairy options, including omega-3 enriched organic hormone-free eggs. If you look at the USDA food pyramid, it's kind of the path to diabetes and obesity with all the starches and sugars that it recommends. And unlike the USDA food guide, our food diamond calls for water as the central component of the healthy diet, and fresh vegetables, followed by protein, and with a limitation of a lot of the carbs, sugars, and starches that we often see that's in the food pyramid. If you look at what's important for athletes really, one of the things I think that we focus on in Cenegenics is incorporating healthy fats into our diet. Such things as nuts and seeds, olive oil, avocados, grapeseed oil, essential fats that help in overall health, while limiting some of the grains and legumes that sometimes can cause some health problems, and really which line the whole bottom of the USDA food pyramid. The Cenegenics nutrition program is really designed to fit each patient's needs, and we kind of customize a diet specific for each individual athlete.
Great. Well, I'm glad you highlighted the importance of the healthy fats, because it's such an important part of diets, especially with our athletes, and something we really like to teach them about. But can you go just in a little bit more detail as why we do recommend our athletes to eat more fat?
Oh, sure. One of the most misunderstood concepts in human nutrition is that eating fat makes you fat. And let me repeat that. The misunderstood thought is that eating fat makes you fat, and that really is not the case at all. And a lack of good fats in our diet can be detrimental to our overall health. I mean, there are fats as what are called omega-3 fats, which are found frequently in fish oil, that are anti-inflammatory and help lower inflammation in the body. But in addition to the essential fats, one of the other reasons we need fats is for the fat-soluble vitamins, particularly A, D, E, and K, all of which are hugely important for overall health. Vitamin A is needed for bone maintenance, for skin, intestinal maintenance. Vitamin D is necessary for calcium metabolism, and really it's an essential component for muscle contraction. Vitamin E helps with cell repair and tissue damage, and vitamin K helps with blood clotting, as well as depositing calcium in your bones and not your soft tissues or arteries. So without essential and beneficial fats, a person cannot be completely healthy. So that's the importance of including fats, as fats are not to be feared as traditionally we are taught.
Yeah, well, I know we do specialized testing here and, looking at people's vitamin and mineral deficiencies, and on our blood panel, especially, vitamin D levels and all sorts of nutrition deficiencies, and we commonly see them come up very low in some of our athletes. I get quite surprised sometimes at how low they are.
Tiffany, actually, we had a patient in here yesterday who was an endurance athlete and had a very low vitamin D of 16. He's going to be doing a SpectraCell test to look further and to see what other deficiencies he may have. And, for the lean ultra runner who has trouble getting enough to eat, healthy fats can be a big boom for their nutritional intake. Fat is a fuel powerhouse at more than twice the energy, 9 calories versus 4 per gram. So, it will provide extra energy to sustain performance.
Yeah, and that's really important, Katrina, because I really like to tell and educate our patients about fats and recovery. All this exercise we do causes mild inflammation in the body, muscles, joints, and all of our connective tissue. And unfortunately, as our exercise duration increases, more inflammation can occur. While protein and carbohydrates are needed for muscle rebuilding and restored energy, good fats are required for healthy cell membrane and tissue restoration. That kind of leads us into the next segue here. And Tiffany, are you going to mention some of the healthy sources of fats?
Yes, I actually made a slide here for our audience to see. When we're talking about fats, especially with athletes, we really want to focus on the mono unsaturated fats, getting a lot of olive oil, raw nuts and seeds, avocados. You can see the list there that's on the screen. And one of my favorite snacks for athletes is macadamia nuts. They are just so loaded with the good, healthy mono unsaturated fat. And then another one I talk frequently to athletes about is coconuts and coconut oil and coconut milk. Very, very healthy saturated fat. And Dr. Nagy, I know you recommend ghee a lot.
Oh, yeah. Ghee is one of my favorite fats, actually. It's actually clarified butter, and it has many nutritive properties, is full of some very essential nutrients, and it can be used either for cooking, sautéing, or a spread, but ghee is one of my favorites.
Great. Well, let's go ahead and talk about carbohydrates. I know a lot of patients get confused about that, so who wants to take that one?
I'll take that one, Tiffany. To fuel high-intensity workouts, you definitely need some carbohydrates. I think everybody knows that. But when you eat carbs, you produce insulin, and insulin is a growth and storage hormone, so it helps you build muscle. However, unfortunately, if insulin is high or too high for too long, it won't only make muscle grow, but it will impact its effects on fat cells as well. So if you limit insulin production throughout the day by eating low glycemic carbohydrates, you remain in fat burning zone. Then after training, you intentionally crank up insulin production by eating carbs, so you switch over to muscle building mode. It's the best of both worlds. Lean muscle gains without the fat, and I think that's what everybody wants. The way to avoid this is by eating more carbs on training days and fewer carbs on off days. The majority of your carbs, though, should be eaten post-workout, but even on days you don't train, you'd still want to have some carbohydrates at night with dinner. Otherwise, your workouts the following day will definitely suffer.
Yeah, and just one quick comment on carbs, Katrina. I usually like to recommend a 3-to-1 ratio of carbohydrate to protein post-workout to replace that intramuscular glycogen stores that have been depleted during that endurance exercise. There's a million different variations in that paleo matrix that we kind of talk about, but a couple that I just want to mention: 6 to 8 ounces of grilled salmon, asparagus, mushrooms, coconut milk, or even just a medium-sized banana and 2 tablespoons of almond butter, something like that, to replace those glycogen stores and carry you on for that next training session.
Great, good point. Well, I do want to remind our listeners out there that we have our office staff available here in the office to take your calls. The number here is 843-724-7272. So now let me ask the big question that all of our athletes out there listening, I'm sure they know a bunch about, but it's protein. So what are you guys' comments about protein?
I'll take this one. Most people think, or a common misconception is if you're trying to, gain lean mass, what you want to do is you just want to have more protein. We're here at Cenegenics Carolinas is to tell you, well, that's not necessarily true. For the most part, most people that are attempting to gain muscle, it's primarily going to be a caloric surplus that's going to aid you, or it's going to allow you to make those goals that you set. If you technically eat more calories than you burn, then you will gain weight. If we train correctly and place these meals at the proper times, then that weight or mass that's gained will be lean muscle. Theoretically, we could have a calorie surplus of lean protein, but you could also eat the same number of calories from fat or carbohydrate to achieve the same results without the drawbacks of a super high protein diet.
Great point, Riley. The exceptions to this are people who train at an extremely competitive level and want to gain muscle beyond the normal range. So this is the level of athletics where eating for performance begins to differ from eating for health. Power lifters or professional bodybuilders, do need to eat more protein, especially if their diet is also relatively low in carbohydrates. All the drawbacks of high-protein diets still apply. These athletes just have simply decided that the trade-off, which would be increased muscle mass, is worth it. For most people, though, the primary goal of exercise is health, rather than competition. So consuming extreme amounts of protein still would be counterproductive.
So what do you guys recommend when patients ask about different protein powders and supplements?
Well, that's a very, very common question of our patients. And, first of all, we just want to say we are not anti-protein shakes. There is a time, there is a place for them, and especially for those individuals that are looking to increase lean body mass. However, we do not recommend protein powders as one of our first options as a protein source. They present protein in usually an isolation form without any carbohydrates or fat to help you metabolize it, and they're heavily processed, loaded with all kinds of artificial colors and flavorings. We like to say, really try to get, your post-exercise nutrition from whole foods. If you need something quick, try to get a baked sweet potato or some piece of leftover meat that you had from the day or the night before, or even just some hard-boiled eggs can get you through.
So what about soy protein?
Well, I'm personally not a big fan of soy protein. In soy protein, there's estrogen-like compounds called isoflavones, and basically they're a form of mild estrogen. Some studies in rodents have even shown that these isoflavones can affect reproductive development in male offspring and can even suppress your thyroid. So in general, we don't recommend soy at all for our patients. And a lot of the soy powders, a lot of the protein powders out there are actually a soy protein. So that's one thing to be careful of when you're looking at the ingredients on your protein powder.
Good point. So one question I know we get a lot from our patient is about the paleo diet for athletes. So Dr. Nagy, what are your thoughts on that diet?
Well, the paleo diet kind of applies to the concept of eating as our Stone Age ancestors did, to the extraordinary demands of training for endurance sports. And although it's now the 21st century, really many of our all of our athletes still have Stone Age genetics and our Paleolithic ancestors did. And there's really been virtually no significant change in the human genome in the past 10,000 years. So physiologically speaking, we're all Paleolithic athletes. And so by modifying your diet before, during, and immediately following challenging workouts, the paleo diet provides two benefits sought by all athletes. Number one, quick recovery from for the next workout. Number two, superior health for the rest of your life. Now, serious athletes, particularly the endurance athletes, sometimes have to modify the diet a little bit immediately before, during, and directly after workouts, and they have a need to bend the rules of the paleo diet, since we're placing demands on the body that really were not normal at all for our Stone Age ancestors.
So what are your comments out there for our listeners that use gels and drink the sports drinks, because those sure don't seem to be too paleo?
Well, they're not. They're a result of modern food manufacturing, and certainly if you're doing some endurance training, you do need a good source of carbs, but it's not. You got to be careful about what kind of carbs you're consuming. More so, real carbs. A lot of the sports drinks and some of the gels that people use are fructose-sweetened energy gels, and really not good sources for replacing depleted muscle glycogen. Regularly consuming processed fructose raises triglycerides, decreases insulin sensitivity, and increases body fat. Basically, is bad. A common complaint I receive regularly from athletes is their unexplained 5 to 15 pounds of unwanted body fat. Where's it coming from, they often ask. And if you look at the diets, some people think that if they exercise, they can follow a poor diet, but that's truly not the case. You don't want to ruin a good workout with a bad diet. Most gels and energy drinks impair glucose metabolism, with the effect that the body increases the manner it stores fats inside the cardiovascular system and as abdominal mass. So I truly recommend people avoid a lot of the fructose-sweetened products that are marketed to athletes as being something healthy.
So what would you recommend they use?
Well, oftentimes for my patients, I'm very whole foods based, and so I like people to eat real food. And there's a particular book, Sweet Potato Power by Ashley Tudor, which has some great fitness gel recipes you can make on your own using a sweet potato as your base. As you can see on the slide there, it lists some of the nutrients that are found in these sports gels that you make on your own using sweet potato really as your base. So I think that's a more effective source of carbohydrates for those that are participating in endurance sports.
Well, we are almost out of time, and we can't get off this webinar without you mentioning your recovery drink for athletes. So can you briefly talk about that?
Oh, sure. There's a metabolic window after you've trained hard and worked out hard, and when your body's able to assimilate more carbohydrates. So oftentimes I recommend the recipe you see on the slide there. That's also from Sweet Potato Power. And you can make some modifications to it, but it's full of rich, healthy carbohydrates as well as protein to aid recovery. Usually the metabolic window is anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes after a workout, where your body can really assimilate all those carbohydrates. And in this recipe, you can feel free to add some nutrient-enhancing benefits too, like amino acids, glutamine, alpha-lipoic acid. All of these things help the body work better. This is not hard and fast. It's got to be this. Modify it to your taste and to your benefit.
Great. Well, so I'd like to welcome on our call one of our patients, Mr. Simmons. He's been part of our Cenegenics team now for about 7 months. And are you there, Mr. Simmons?
Yes, I am.
Great. If you could just go ahead and briefly mention how our Cenegenics Carolinas program has affected your health and athletic performance. I think some of our listeners out there might be interested in hearing.
All right. Well, I've been with Cenegenics since 2007, actually. I've been at another facility and been with North Carolina Cenegenics since 7 months. But the difference in the two facilities is astronomical. The nutritional support from Tiffany, I can't tell you how many phone calls she's made to me to help me through some different areas that I've needed some help. And Riley, the sports and the trainer, the different programs he set me up on that I've never had a program set up ever at the other facility. And I was having some inflammation problems that Dr. Nagy helped me get worked out with arthritis, and I had to quit one of my passions, which was karate. And just recently I've been able to go back to that, and it's all because of the combination, in my opinion, of what North Carolina Cenegenics Tiffany, Riley, and Dr. Nagy have all combined to help me too. So I feel wonderful mentally because now I'm not depressed that I don't have to give up my passion, my sport, and I feel physically wonderful, so both mentally and physically. So I love it.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Simmons, for sharing that. We do have your before and after pictures up on the slide for our audience to see, and you look amazing, and we just have really enjoyed working with you. So thank you for sharing your story. Well, we are just about out of time. We're going to be taking some questions here at the end, so if you'd like to type in your question on your computer, we'll be able to get that and answer. And then also, if you do want to call in, we have our staff here ready to take your calls. So the number is 843-724-7272. So, Dr. Nagy, we're about to wrap it up. Is there any last-minute comments you want to make before closing?
Oh, sure. I mean, when you look at the greater scheme of things, every day you have a few dietary goals that you need to achieve in order to maintain your body and to keep getting stronger and to remain healthy. And that's what Eat to Perform means. It means you need to prioritize supplying your body with enough quality nutrients to support athletic achievement, no matter how great or small these achievements are. Because in the end, we're all athletes. So I'd like to just let you know, at Cenegenics Carolinas, we are the experts. If you're looking to take your performance to the next level, we're your answer. I'd ask you to give us a call because we certainly could help optimize your health for the better.
Absolutely, and not only with, exercise for athletes. I mean, we help people with mental acuity, revitalizing their sex drive, decreasing body fat, increasing muscle tone. I mean, so much more to the program than just, performance, but that we do have a lot of athletes we're able to help them in that area. So I do encourage you, if you're interested in our program, call us and learn more, because we would love to see you. It's 843-724-7272. Well, Dr. Nagy, are you ready to take some questions? We have a couple that are coming in here.
Oh, great.
One, what are your thoughts about dairy products in athletes?
Well, that's a good question. Dairy's always been touted as a great source of protein and calcium, but there's also evidence indicating that our ability to tolerate lactose wanes as we age. And milk, in a way, is full of sugar. So my take on this is really you need to find a good source of high-fat, raw, natural dairy, and then you won't have that problem with the lactose intolerance or issues with digesting the milk. Now that's very difficult to do oftentimes and downright near impossible unless you're pals with an organic farmer. But if you are going to consider dairy, it certainly should be organic dairy, and I really recommend that people drink whole milk or full-fat yogurts and milk, because if you're drinking low-fat or no-fat, you're not really absorbing a lot of the vitamins, as we spoke about earlier in the talk.
Great. Okay, the next question is, in the paleo diet, it says wheat is bad for you. Why is that?
Well, that's a whole separate webinar in itself, but wheat has a lot of issues. The way it's been hybridized and altered over the years changes the protein structure and the content of it to form a protein called gluten. And many of us have heard of gluten sensitivity, which is fairly darn prevalent in society. It's just not often tested for. So as your body sees wheat or grains, it considers them sugar. So a lot of times eating 2 pieces of whole wheat bread, which we're admonished to eat, actually the body sees as eating 2 tablespoons of sugar. So wheat has some carbohydrate properties which are unhealthy, and in addition it has some anti-nutrients which actually detract or take away from some of the nutrients from the other foods you're eating, as well as some of the nutrients that are in the grain. So I try to tell most people to go wheat or grain-free as a matter of health, both to lower sugar content, as well as decrease some of the side effects that grains can have on a body.
Okay, next question is, what are your recommendations about eating red meat?
Well, that's a common question, too, because as many of us are aware, meat is kind of the red-headed stepchild of the nutrition of nutrition. It's always being bashed on as causing cancer or causing heart attacks or causing other problems. And really, the honest truth is meat is not bad. Bad meat is bad. And what I mean by that is you always have to consider the source of the food that you're eating, not just animal products, but also all the food you're eating. So if you're going to eat meat, I would recommend that you eat meat from an appropriately raised, pastured, organic, grass-eating cow. You know, you should much meat is mass-produced, and it's provided with hormones, antibiotics. It's fed a non-native diet, which causes problems, and that's why some of the health detriment of meat is so widely discussed. But in fact, when you're eating meat from a properly raised and a properly sourced cow, meat is fine. It's just a matter of eating the proper type.
Okay. Next question is, what sugars and sweets do you recommend for athletes to consume?
Good question, because you know, as we all know, sugar is one of the major players in the detriment of health in our society. You know, the average American eats 22 teaspoons of sugar a day. The average teenager eats 39. So, you know, we're programmed to love the sweet stuff. But, you know, diving into a honeycomb as an occasional treat is much different than all the processed refined sugars that we flood our bodies with daily. You know, I basically recommend that we eat naturally occurring sweet treats like whole fruits, raw honey, coconut milk, dark chocolate. The key, though, is to do it with moderation. You know, too much sugar, even the natural kind, can send your blood sugar spiking and dipping, which can cause all kinds of problems. So the more you can eliminate sugar from your diet, the healthier you're going to be in the long run.
Great. Well, we do have a couple other questions that have come in, but we like to keep these webinars right under 30 minutes. So, you know, we'll respond to your questions via email, or we'll call you back if we didn't get to your question today. And then we will also send you a follow-up email from the webinar. So we really appreciate everybody taking the time to tune in and listen. If you have any more questions, feel free to call us, 843-724-7272. And Dr. Nagy, Katrina, and Riley, thank you so much, too, for sharing all this info with us. Everybody have a good day. Bye.